Woo! Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Rihanna. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk about non-vegan friends and family, and I'm a little bit nervous to make this video because when I've made these videos in the past, as much as lots of you engage with what I'm saying and comment and like, there's also a lot of dislikes and I get a lot of backlash and crap for these videos. But you know what? To hell with it. We're going to go with it. We're going to talk about this because I know you're interested, probably interested, maybe interested in how things have changed in the last 3 years, which is when I last made one of these videos. Can you believe it's been 3 years? I can't. That's gone fast and also not fast. But yeah, lots of change in the last 3 years. Oh, also, if you're new here, hi, my name's Rihanna. I make videos about conscious living, including veganism, low waste, zero waste, co-parenting, ethics and anti-oppression. So if that sounds like your jam, hit the subscribe button now and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss another video. Now, in order for me to start talking about non-vegan friends and family, I have to go over some of the big changes in my life because there have been 4 big changes and they're all significant to how I feel about non-vegan friends and family now. The first big change is in my work life. So in the last video, I was working for Animal Save Movement, which involved me going to slaughterhouses up to 3 and 4 times a week around the UK and bearing witness to animals that were being brought in that day to be killed. Activists would gather outside the slaughterhouse and we would spend up to 6 hours there from really early in the morning, 6 a.m. till 12, because that was the busy period when the animals were being brought in. And this was very emotionally draining. It was very traumatic. I think I dealt with that kind of trauma by aiming a lot of the resentment and anger I felt at seeing all those animals before they were being killed. I aimed a lot of that at the non-vegans in my life. I just felt like I hated them. And that was my way of dealing with the trauma at the time. Now I still work in animal rights, but I work for a really small vegan animal rights grassroots charity called Freedom for Animals, and we focus on animals in captivity. So the campaign I've been working on most recently over Christmas is reindeer used in festive events. And one big difference I noticed from talking to the non-vegans in my life is that when you talk to a non-vegan about animals in captivity, animals used in festive events, like reindeer, they don't feel very confronted by it as a subject, because going to the zoo or going to SeaWorld and going to events where they use reindeer at Christmas time, these are all relatively easy things not to do. You can just not go. Whereas I think when I worked for Animal Save Movement, a lot of the non-vegans in my life never wanted to ask me about my work. They literally would never ask me about my job because they knew that the animals that I was campaigning for were specifically animals in the food industry. And so they were all in turn complicit in that use of animals. And so it made them uncomfortable to ask me what I did. Whereas now this kind of work, the non-vegans are just not confronted by it, and mostly they just agree that animals shouldn't be used in this way. But then it's a different story, isn't it, when you talk to them about animals that are used in food production. The second big change is that I moved house 2 and a bit years ago. So I was living in the area that I grew up in and I felt quite isolated there. I didn't really have many like-minded people, friends around me. Whereas now I now live in an area where has quite a big vegan and vegetarian community. There are lots of very environmentally conscious people here. There are also a lot of people who are raising their kids in a similar way to us. If they're not vegan, and then by that I mean that they are co-sleeping, they've done extended breastfeeding, they've used cloth nappies, so they've done things that are kind of against the grain. And I've connected with some of I've connected within this community and with parents around here because they've done some of those similar things that we have. Although there are actually a lot of there are some vegan families too, and a lot more vegetarian families I've found. So the other big change is that I'm a co-parent now. So half of the week I have Frida, and then the other half of the week when she's with her dad, I live on my own. And this has enabled me to kind of rediscover myself and do things that I like again and remember sort of what I do like. So I sing now and I embroider and I read a lot in my spare time. And over this lockdown, I've started wild swimming, which has been amazing for my mental health. And I think I've just been figuring myself out in a way that you need to do after you've had a kid, because motherhood is it's all consuming, isn't it? And of course, the fourth big change, I can't not mention this, is living through a pandemic and living under lockdown for the third time now. This has really made me become more introspective, I'd say, and it's also made me consider what's really important to me, and it's also helped me let go of those things that I just can't control, that are outside of my control, in a way that I don't think I was very good at before. Living this way for the best part of a year has really made me realize what's important. I'm going to kick off with friends, because friends are always easier than family anyway, aren't they? So friends-wise, most of my closest friends happen to be vegan anyway. They just are. Of course, not all of them are, but most of them are. And that's probably because I've been vegan over 6.5 years now, and being involved in activism, like getting involved in SAVE, meant that I met loads of vegans who were like-minded, and I've stayed in touch with lots of those people and formed very solid friendships with them. One thing I would say about the non-vegans in my life is that they all do have one main thing in common, and that is that they're all open to, very receptive about veganism anyway, or they care about and fight against some form of oppression. And by that I mean they care about anti-racism, anti-sexism, anti-ableism. They all care about some form of oppression and are doing something to actively fight against that. And for me, that's really important, to have people around me who care about something and who are active in something and who are trying to work towards making the world a better place. That's so important to me. I'd say I expect a lot more from the vegans in my life than the non-vegans, and let me explain what I mean by this. Back in the day when I first became vegan and I would meet a vegan, I'd be so excited and I would high five that person and be like, yeah, you don't use animals. Whereas now, it's not that I don't feel happy when I meet another vegan, but I meet another vegan and I kind of go, and what kind of vegan are you? And by that, I wonder, when I first initially meet a vegan, if they are all about animals first, or if they are consistent anti-oppression, and if they care about other forms of oppression outside of animal use. And by that I mean, are they actively doing things to unlearn systemic racism in them, systemic sexism? Are they looking at their language and the ways that they are ableist in the way that they speak? Or are they just very animals first? Basically, I want to know if they are total liberation or animal liberation. And when I first became vegan, I was definitely animal liberation, in that I hadn't thought about any of this stuff yet, but it's been 6.5 years and I've done lots of reading and thinking and talking to different people and experiencing life. And what I've come to realize is that all oppression is linked and it's all interconnected. And until all of us are free, none of us are free. So I expect the vegans in my life to care about this and to care about other forms of oppression, and to not say or do ableist things or racist things or sexist things, and to be working on themselves all the time. And you might be watching this thinking, wow, you expect a lot from them then. And yeah, I do. I expect a lot from the vegans in my life. And I think if you're a vegan watching this who isn't kind of actively doing more than animals first, animal liberation, then I hope this is a starting point for you to think about the different ways that you can tackle oppression as a whole, and see it as a whole and see it as something interconnected, because it is, and there is no such thing as a single issue. One thing I want to ask you as an audience is, if you haven't heard of consistent anti-oppression as a term before, can you just comment below? Because that would really help me to know what you as an audience read and understand and stuff. And if you haven't heard about consistent anti-oppression before and you don't really know what I'm talking about, then I can make content about that, but I just need to know if you as an audience already know this stuff or not. I do not tolerate vegans or non-vegans who are racist, sexist, ableist, homophobic. But one thing I am a bit more lenient on is speciesism. And the reason for that is because speciesism as a term has only been coined in the last 10 years. And I think, it's not something that is widely, universally known in the same way that racism or other forms of oppression are and are talked about. So I think that's why, as if I meet a non-vegan and we click in lots of different ways, then I will feel that I can talk to them about speciesism at some point, and it's going to come up naturally anyway, especially if we're already talking about different forms of oppression. Animal oppression is a part of it. So, and I think that's also why I have less patience with vegans who are racist, sexist, ableist, homophobic, etc. Because I feel if you are a person who has somehow managed to push through and understand speciesism, which is very invisible in our society, and understand and not want to participate in animal use, then how are you not also anti-racist? How are you not also anti-ableist? I mean, for me, it kind of blows my mind that those things just don't all kind of merge and gel together, because they are all totally connected. You cannot separate them. And as I said, speciesism is something that is very, very invisible in our society, continues to go unseen if we don't speak about it. So that's why I expect more from vegans. On to family now. Family. Fun and games. But sorry to disappoint you, but generally speaking, my family relations are actually a lot better than they were in the last video. I still do not sit and eat with anyone while they consume animal products, and that with friends is no issue whatsoever. Like, all my friends are happy to eat vegan food with me because it's just food, isn't it? We shouldn't even call it vegan food because it is just food. Whereas when that was something I started doing 5+ years ago now, I think, my family were very resistant to it. There was a lot of tension around it. Whereas now it's just a non-issue. I feel like me being vegan in my family is just it's not an issue because it's been 6.5 years. I still do not sit and eat with my dad ever because he won't eat the same food as me. But generally speaking, our relationship is a lot better and we get on, so that's great. My brothers, I have 3 brothers, 2 of them both happy to sit and eat vegan food with me. One of them went through a period last year where he like started to push the boundaries a bit with the eating non-vegan food in front of me and with me, and I had to basically re-establish those boundaries again. And there's a quote, I think it's from Brené Brown actually, about boundaries and asserting boundaries, and it's either you are going to feel uncomfortable when you assert your boundaries, or you're going to feel resentful by not asserting your boundaries. And so he was trying to push it with eating non-vegan food with me, and I was like, oh, this is really uncomfortable. But then we had to have that talk about it, and it was fine in the end. But in that moment when I had to talk about it again and raise it and say, look, nothing's changed, I still really, really resent and feel very uncomfortable sitting with anyone while they consume animal products. So this is an act of self-care for me not to do that with you because I love you. And I don't want to watch you do something and take part in something that is so violent, a system that is so violent. And that wasn't, as much as it was uncomfortable for me to bring up with him, because I felt like, come on, you know this is something that I care about. Why are you pushing this boundary? Why are you shitting on my boundary? Afterwards, it was fine, and I didn't feel resentful because I'd reasserted that. So even now, 6.5 years on, there are these like moments with family in particular, I'd say, where they try and push that boundary, and I have to be like, no, I'm going to reassert it. And it's always uncomfortable, but I'd rather be uncomfortable for a short time than feel resentful for a long period. So generally speaking, as I said, my family relations are much better. My brothers are both happy to sit and eat vegan food with me. I have an older brother who's a half brother who I don't really have much to do with anyway, but that doesn't really have anything to do with veganism. Like, we didn't grow up together. He's quite a lot older than me, and we just don't really stay in touch. But he has a daughter who's in her 20s, and so she's my niece, and she emigrated to Australia last year, and she went vegetarian about 1.5 years ago, and she told me that her plan is to go vegan, but she's not there yet. And she really readily accepts book recommendations from me that are vegan and feminist and intersectional, and she's just very open-minded, and so I'm happy to have someone like her in the family. It kind of gives me faith in the rest of my family and kind of people as a whole, and in young people. I think there's something in sort of her generation being so, climate change is so present for them. It's going to affect young people a lot more than it's going to affect me and older generations. I'm not going to be here in the same way and alive in the same way that my daughter is, age 3 now. She's going to really witness the impact of climate change in a way that I'm not going to. So I think that's something that young people have, this openness and this readiness, because they know that it's going to affect them. While veganism is generally really very accepted in my family now. 6.5 years later, it's only taken 6.5 years. I still have difficult conversations with family members about different things. And one of the anecdotes I wanted to share with you is one of my brothers, who is a man of colour, recently said to me that racism is not systemic. And the reason he believes this is because he follows a handful of black people on social media who say that racism is not systemic and that they personally have not been victimized or affected negatively by racism. And you might be watching this thinking, wow, how can he have that opinion? But actually, there are a lot of people who have this opinion. It's kind of widely talked about, if you like, and it's not that unusual because a person can cherry pick different people from the black community and say, oh look, this person is doing very well, this person is too, and in doing so they are tokenizing those black people and using them to confirm an already pre-existing belief they have about racism. So it's confirmation bias. And one thing that my brother also says to me about the black women that I read and listen to and I'm influenced by, he says, oh, you know, Angela Davis and Bell Hooks and Audre Lorde, they only wrote books and engaged in this anti-racist work to make money. And then that's really interesting because it feeds into this idea of like there being a black economy. And so I have difficult conversations like this with my family now. And at the same time when I'm having these conversations, I am really aware that, you know, mine and my brother's conflicting views about racism, you know, they're not just us having differing opinions. They also come from growing up in a very dysfunctional family, from childhood trauma and from things that haven't been dealt with yet. And, you know, these are things that we all have to deal with. You know, we're all kind of unpacking things from our childhood and wading through dysfunction and, you know, dealing with stuff in our own way. So I wanted to share that with you because I think there's always going to be a lot of difficulty and sometimes miscommunication with family, and it happens because there's love there. And I do have a lot of love for my family, and I want to get through these sort of difficult periods. And I think one of the things I do now is I allow them more time to engage with these issues. And when I've kind of found myself in positions where I felt very confronted and like the conversation isn't going anywhere, I've taken a step back and I've removed myself and I've thought, okay, I'm going to give this person, like my brother, time because I love him. And yeah, we have these different views about racism, but it goes beyond racism and anti-racism. And it's not just about that. It's about our experiences of the world and our experiences in the family. So yeah, it goes much further than that. And I imagine you also understand in your family how that works too. So I'm really keen to hear what your experiences of non-vegan friends and family are. Do you find them difficult? Has it eased the longer you've been vegan? Has it developed? What's changed for you? If you're watching this video as a non-vegan, how do you find the vegans in your life, if you have any? Do you talk to them about veganism? Are they approachable? Are they confrontational? What are your experiences like? If you've enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like because it really helps the visibility of the channel. And if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss another video. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, go follow me on Instagram at Rihanna Jameen. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.